All right, we're gonna just do a little bit of cleanup work on our arch here. I'll introduce you to a new concept. So here I have my arch selected. I'm going to go into element and I'm just going to grab everything. I'm gonna hit auto smooth to make sure I get a nice clean set of uh, polygons assigned to it. I'm gonna do something else here. I'm gonna do Unwrap Uvw. I'm gonna go from map channel 1. I'm gonna change it to map channel 2. And now I get this channel change warning, and basically what it's saying is, hey, you got all these UVs here. What do you want to take all the works that's been happening in this one specific version of this unwrap? Do you want to move it or abandon it? I'm going to say move. Right now, keep in mind, I'm going to dump that. I already right-clicked and said convert to edit poly previously. All I have in my stack is an edit poly. If you have an edit poly, right-click on it, collapse to, or right-click and convert to edit poly, but make those UVs permanent because we want to keep those. I'm going to put an unwrap on. I'm going to go open UV editor, and here's my base UVs, right, which is a tiling set of UVs, so they will look chaotic like this. Now I'm going to go to map channel 1 and I'm going to change it to 2, and this is where this warning comes up. And it's basically saying the modifier can only edit one UV set at a time. So I'm going to a new channel, right? And because you're going to a channel, you need to know is there anything you did in the current UVs? Do you want to move that to the second UV set? Or do you want to abandon any current changes you just did? So I'm going to go ahead and say abandon. And so now I'm on UV2. So what you're seeing here is you can actually get multiple sets of UVs on a model. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to do mapping, flatten mapping, and say okay. And that's going to take every UV on our model and pack it into this 0 to 1 space. So we have a completely UV layout. I'm going to hit pack custom to kind of, let's do padding. If I click padding, see how much it pads them out. I don't really want that. Let's pack them in again. I'm going to change the padding here to 0.05 and click OK. And that separates them a little bit. And so what you're seeing here is you're getting every single polygon is uniquely laid out. And this will be important when we start working in a game engine because there's a process of taking light information and generating textures for them in the game engine. But that sits on UV2, right? And so I can right click and say convert to editable poly. Now, if you have a really good UV layout, so if I open Unwrap Uvw and say open UV editor, these UVs we have, they're not bad, right? It's actually pretty solid, right? So I can change it from map channel 1. When I go to 2, I'm going to actually say move. So it's going to move everything I did in 1 to 2. And now if I just hit pack custom, it's going to pack them in. And because so many of our elements are kind of stacked together, like these elements are stacked together, we get this nicer sort of UV layout. There's less tiny little pieces everywhere. One thing we will need to do is I clicked in negative space, so nothing's selected. I can do select inverted polygons, which obviously half of the model is going to be inverted because of all the symmetry. I'm just going to click break, and then up here, I'm going to mirror them. And now I'm going to repack it so that everything you see is no longer mirrored. And I can click a negative space. Let's pad this out to 0.05 and click OK. All right. And now just right click and say convert to poly. So that's sort of setting up the model for light maps. Now, additionally, I did mention before we did do symmetry, and so we get this little bit of a butterfly effect. If we go into Unwrap Uvw, and I'm on map channel 1. Notice I keep collapsing my UVs to make my changes permanent. I'm going to go to Open UV Editor, and why don't we focus in, I'm going to click Element and just click on this portion here, and I'm going to display only that. So now I could come in here and say Select, and select Inverted Polygons, and I always hit Break when I do that. I can mirror them vertically, and I can start to kind of just move it over to the side so I can see what's going on. What I want to do is I'm going to turn off select element. I'm going to click one of these edges here so I can find out where these guys are. There they are. So I'm going to select this edge and I'm going to use stitch to move those over. And then I can go into vertex and grab those and weld them. And so now all of the, where is my weld? There we go. Weld selected. There you go. So now I don't have that mirror effect on this portion of my model. So I could turn that off. And then we happen to see over here, hey, look at that. We got another one on the other side. Let's go to Polygon, Element, click on it. And again, we'll do Display Only Selected. And then we'll do Select Inverted Polygons. And we're just going to mirror them. And I'm just going to move them over to the side. And then again, if I click this edge, oops, I'm going to turn off Select by Element. I click this edge to orient myself on the model. Let's just grab this one edge here and move it over. Now, if you didn't go through and straighten out the lines, you may end up getting some distortion and warping, right? Like this one edge may be skewing over to the side. The trick to that is just before you do this, going through and doing the quick align on the edges you're going to weld together. So I'm going to vertex, select here and do weld selected. If you ever right click and say convert to edit polygon and say, oh my gosh, what happened to my model? Just you go into element and under edit geometry, there's unhide all. And just, you know, if you go into vertex, sometimes the vertex points get hidden and you would do unhide all on them. So you could go through and do that mirror thing I just showed you. You could do it for the top as well, where those portions are. You could even go through, if I click on my column here, I could do a Uvw map, set it to box, and I'm going to square out the values at 200 everywhere. Oops, 200, 200, 200. And then, oh, I meant to say 400, but that's okay. I'm just going to do 200 and go into Gizmo, and I'm going to set the position to 200, oops, 0, 0, XY, and 200 for the height. Yeah, that's good. And then right click and convert to edit poly. And then the last thing I want to do is I actually want this portion here in the center to kind of line up in one specific way. So let's just open UV editor. And I'm going to select these polygons that make up sort of the center of this arch. Kind of just these guys here. And I want to make sure that's all I have selected. So I'll hit F3, go into wireframe, make sure only those are selected. And I'm going to do this trick here because these are all kind of separated on their own. There's a peel option to reset the peel. And if I do that, it kind of peels them all as their own chunk. I can display only selected, just kind of rotate it around and do tools, relax, and do start relax, turn that off, and then I could just kind of take this whole thing. If I hit F2 so I could see, move that around to where I can see the lighting. I'm going to kind of take that, move it over here, and then use freeform to just kind of adjust it so I get like 2 rows maybe of brick happening. And there we go. That's what I wanted to get. Right, kind of like 2 rows worth. And then you can decide, do you want the bricks going? And let's turn this off so we can see how they, all right, yeah, the scale looks right. And maybe instead of going that direction, maybe I rotate it. There we go. And so now the bricks go all the way around and you don't get weird distortion. Right click, convert to edit poly, everything's permanent. The last step may be to go in, and since we did do some cleanup here, let's go ahead and right click, convert to edit poly, put a new unwrap on, and go from map channel 1 to map channel 2. Now I'm going to actually move what I have, and what that did was overwrite our previous light map. But now that we stitched a bunch of stuff together, let's go ahead and just arrange elements and do padding 0.5, pack that, and now those will get nicer light maps when we get into our mesh. Convert to edit poly, and put one more edit poly on there for 2, and you're good. That's it. That's the second pass of UV cleanup on the arch. Get a screenshot of that, the usual, turn it in.